My name is Claire, and I'm 34 years old. I stood in that courthouse hallway watching my entire world walk away. The divorce was finalized. I'd lost everything. My husband, my kids, my house, my reputation, all gone. My sister Patricia walked out hand in hand with my ex-husband Derek, wearing a smile that should have been mine. My children barely glanced in my direction as they passed. They believed every lie Shed fed them. I felt my knees buckle as the weight of complete defeat crushed down on me. Then my phone buzzed. A voicemail from the family lawyer about my grandmother's will. His voice was urgent, almost excited. "You need to hear this immediately. Everything changes now." I had no idea that the grandmother I'd been caring for had been watching everything and planning her revenge from beyond the grave. Before we dive into this story, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. If you've ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted, hit that like button. Subscribe and turn on notifications because what happens next will show you that justice, even when delayed, can be absolutely devastating. Trust me, you won't want to miss a single minute of how this unfolds. 3 years ago, my life looked like something out of a magazine. I lived in a beautiful suburban neighborhood in Connecticut with my husband Derek, who I'd loved since high school. We'd been married for 12 years, and those years felt like a dream I never wanted to wake up from. Our daughter Lily was 10 years old, smart as a whip and full of sass. Our son Noah was 7, with the sweetest smile that could melt anyone's heart. Derek had built a successful real estate development company, and everyone in town knew him. He was charming, confident, the kind of man who lit up every room he entered. I worked as a graphic designer from home, which gave me the flexibility to be there for every school pickup, every soccer game, every moment that mattered. We lived in this gorgeous 4-bedroom colonial house with an actual white picket fence. I used to joke that we were living the American dream, and it didn't feel like a joke at all. Our life had rhythm and warmth. We hosted neighborhood barbecues every summer. I volunteered at the PTA and organized bake sales. We took annual beach vacations where Derek would chase the kids through the waves while I watched from our blanket, feeling so grateful for everything we'd built together. Every Sunday, we had family dinner around our big oak table. Those dinners were sacred to me. The 4 of us talking about our week, making each other laugh, being together. I thought nothing could ever break what we had. Then my younger sister Patricia came back into our lives in a way that would destroy everything. Patricia was 28, 6 years younger than me, and Shed always struggled to find her footing. Bad jobs, worse relationships, and a jealousy that I'd noticed but always excused as sibling rivalry. Shed called me crying about her latest disaster, and I'd always help her. I gave her money when she couldn't make rent. I let her stay with us during her rough patches. One of those rough patches started about 2 years ago when she showed up at our door with 2 suitcases and tears streaming down her face. She said she needed to stay for 2 weeks. Those 2 weeks turned into 8 months. Derek had concerns from the beginning. I remember him pulling me aside one night after Patricia had been living with us for about 3 months. He said she was taking advantage of me, that she looked at our life like she wanted to steal it. I defended her. I told him she was my sister, and she just needed support. He pressed further, saying there was something about the way she watched us, the way she inserted herself into our family moments. I dismissed his worries completely. "She's my sister," I told him. "She just needs someone to believe in her." Looking back now, I can see every sign I missed. Patricia started borrowing my clothes, wearing my perfume, asking too many questions about Derek's schedule. Shed volunteered to pick up the kids from school on days when Derek was supposed to do it. Shed suggested I take time for myself, go out with friends, while she helped Derek with dinner and bedtime routines. I thought she was being helpful. I was so blind. My grandmother Ruth was 87 years old and sharp as a tack despite her age. She lived in the family estate about 20 minutes from our house, this beautiful old Victorian that had been in our family for 3 generations. I visited her 3 times a week, sometimes more. I'd help her with bills, take her to doctor's appointments, sit with her for hours just talking. I genuinely loved spending time with her. Ruth had this way of seeing through people that I'd always admired. Patricia rarely visited Ruth, maybe once every few months, and even then it was brief. She'd complained that Ruth was too demanding, too old-fashioned, too judgmental, but Ruth saw Patricia clearly even when I couldn't. She'd give me these warnings that I thought were just paranoia from old age. "Watch that sister of yours," she'd say. "Blood doesn't mean loyalty, Claire. Remember that." I'd pat her hand and change the subject, thinking she was being unnecessarily harsh. Ruth knew what I refused to see. My family seemed solid and unshakable. I'd built this beautiful life through hard work and love, and I thought nothing could tear it down. I was wrong. 18 months ago, my car broke down on the way home from the grocery store. My neighbor Karen happened to drive past and offered me a ride home. I accepted gratefully, leaving my car to be dealt with later. We pulled up to my house around 2 in the afternoon, and I noticed Derek's car in the driveway. That was strange. Head told me that morning he had a business meeting across town that would keep him out until at least 5. I thanked Karen, grabbed my purse, and walked up to my front door with this odd feeling in my stomach. The house was quiet when I stepped inside. Too quiet. I called out Derek's name. No answer. I walked through the living room, past the kitchen, and headed toward the stairs. That's when I heard it. A sound that made my blood run cold. I climbed those stairs like I was walking through a nightmare. Each step felt heavy and wrong. I reached our bedroom door, which was slightly ajar, and I pushed it open. My husband was in bed with my sister. In my bed. In the sheets I'd washed that morning. In the room where I'd rocked my babies to sleep. The moment froze like a photograph I'd never be able to burn. Patricia's face went white with shock. Derek scrambled to cover himself, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. I couldn't breathe. The air had been sucked out of the room, out of my lungs, out of my entire world. My knees buckled, and I grabbed the doorframe to keep from falling. Patricia spoke first. "Claire, wait, this isn't what it looks like." Her voice was high and panicked. The absurdity of that statement hit me like a slap. "This isn't what it looks like." I was staring at them naked in my bed, and she had the audacity to say those words. Derek found his voice next. "Claire, let me explain. This was a mistake. It just happened. Just happened. Like they'd accidentally tripped and fallen into bed together." The rage that hit me was unlike anything I'd ever felt. I started screaming. Words poured out of me that I didn't even know I knew. I grabbed things from my dresser and threw them. A jewelry box. A picture frame. Anything my hands could reach. I ordered them both out of my house. "Get out, get out, get out!" I screamed it over and over until my throat was raw. Patricia started crying, grabbing clothes from the floor. "I'm so sorry!" I don't know what came over me. He seduced me. She was trying to play the victim even in that moment. Derek's response was even worse. "You've been so distant lately." I felt alone. He was actually trying to justify this. I felt like I was losing my mind. I screamed back at him that I'd been distant because I was taking care of our children, his house, and my dying grandmother. I'd been building our life while he was destroying it. The confrontation escalated until the neighbors could probably hear every word. Patricia grabbed a bag and ran out, still crying, still playing her role. Derek tried to do damage control. He kept saying it was one time, that he was weak, that I shouldn't destroy our family over a mistake. I told him Head already destroyed it. I kicked him out that night. He packed a bag and left, and I locked every door behind him. Then the kids came home from school. Lily and Noah walked into a house that felt like a war zone. I was sitting on the floor crying. Their dad's car was gone. They asked why I was upset, why Dad was leaving. I tried to explain in a way that wouldn't traumatize them, but how do you tell your children that their father betrayed you with their aunt? I said Dad and I were having problems, and He'd be staying somewhere else for a while. Noah started crying. Lily looked angry and confused. That night, after I got them to bed, I called my mother Diane in Florida. Shed remarried years ago and we weren't particularly close, but she was still my mother. I needed someone to tell me I wasn't crazy. Her response shocked me almost as much as the betrayal itself. These things happen in marriages, Claire. Don't be so dramatic. Think of the children. She actually suggested I work through it. She told me to forgive and move forward. I felt utterly alone. The next morning, I called a lawyer and filed for divorce. Patricia sent me dozens of text messages over the following days. Apologies, excuses, begging for forgiveness. Each message made me feel sicker. I blocked her on everything. My grandmother Ruth somehow heard about what happened through the family gossip network. She called me the next day. Her voice was steady and certain. "Come see me tomorrow. We need to talk." I went to see her that afternoon, and Ruth held my hands in hers. She didn't say, "I told you so," even though she could have. She just said, "Now the real fight begins, and you need to be ready." The weeks following the discovery were brutal. Derek didn't just accept the divorce. He fought back hard. He filed counterpapers and hired this aggressive lawyer named Mitchell Harrison, who had a reputation for destroying ex-wives in court. Derek's strategy became clear very quickly. He was going to paint me as unstable and unfit to be a mother. Then Patricia did something that made me realize this wasn't just an affair. This was a coordinated attack. She suddenly reconciled with Derek publicly. They started appearing together around town. They'd sit at the local coffee shop holding hands where everyone could see them. They'd have dinner at restaurants we used to go to as a family. They were making sure the whole town knew they were together. Patricia moved into Derek's new apartment. She started playing the role of loving stepmother to my children during his custody time. Lily and Noah would come home from visits with their dad, talking about how Aunt Patricia made them special breakfasts or took them to the park. I watched my children being manipulated in real time, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. The kids started coming home confused and upset. They'd repeat things Patricia had told them. Things like, "Your mom is trying to keep you from your dad," or "Your mom is just angry and being mean." I tried to maintain normalcy. I kept their routines. I helped with homework. I made their favorite meals. But I could feel them slipping away from me. Their school performance started dropping. They became withdrawn. Their teachers called concerned. Then Derek's lawyer filed an emergency custody motion. I'll never forget reading those papers. They claimed Eid had a mental breakdown. That I was unstable and potentially dangerous to the children. The basis for this claim was that neighbors had heard me screaming the day I discovered the affair. They twisted my justified rage into evidence of mental instability. But it got worse. Patricia submitted an affidavit as part of Derek's filing. In that official court document, she lied about our entire childhood. She said Eid always been jealous and controlling. She claimed I was abusive to her growing up. She said I was on medication for psychological issues. Every single word was a complete fabrication. Derek's business partner Raymond testified that I was erratic at social functions. These people were creating a false narrative about me and presenting it to a judge as fact. The emergency hearing was humiliating. The judge ordered me to undergo a psychological evaluation. I had to sit in a court-appointed psychiatrist's office and prove I wasn't crazy while my children were being poisoned against me. Meanwhile, there was a whisper campaign happening in town. The PTA mothers who used to be friendly suddenly turned cold. I stopped getting invited to neighborhood gatherings. People I'd known for years avoided eye contact at the grocery store. Patricia was very active on social media during this time. She'd post vague things about supporting someone through their darkness or finding unexpected love in hard times. She posted photos with Lily and Noah with captions like, "My angels." People who didn't know the real story commented about what a good aunt she was. They called them a beautiful family. Every post felt like a knife in my chest. I tried to tell my side of the story, but I just sounded like a bitter ex-wife. No one wanted to hear the truth. They wanted the simple narrative that Derek and Patricia were in love, and I was the jealous obstacle. Then I lost my best friend Sharon. We'd known each other for 15 years. Our kids played together. Wed talked on the phone almost every day. She called me one afternoon and said she needed to distance herself from the drama. Her husband worked with Derek, and she couldn't risk their family's financial stability by being associated with me. More friendships dissolved overnight. My design clients started canceling their contracts. They'd give vague reasons about going in a different direction, but I knew the truth. Derek was well connected in the business community, and word spread fast. The financial pressure became crushing. Legal fees were piling up and my income had dropped dramatically. Derek had frozen our joint bank accounts, claiming he needed to protect marital assets. I struggled to buy groceries. I borrowed money from my credit cards just to keep the utilities on. I felt like I was drowning. Through all of this, my grandmother Ruth called me every week. She'd say things like "stay strong" and watching everything, and this isn't over. She had this certainty in her voice that I couldn't understand. I was losing everything, and she kept acting like there was some master plan. I didn't understand it then. I just knew I needed to survive one more day. That's all I could focus on. Getting through one more day without completely falling apart. 6 months into the divorce proceedings, the parental alienation campaign intensified in ways I never could have imagined. Lily's 12th birthday was coming up, and Derek and Patricia decided to throw her an elaborate party. They rented out this fancy event venue, hired entertainers, invited all of Lily's school friends and their parents. It was the kind of party I never could have afforded on my shrinking budget. The invitation list included everyone except me. When I called Derek about it, he said it was better for Lily if I wasn't there causing stress. I refused to accept that. This was my daughter's birthday. It'd been there for every single birthday since the day she was born. I wasn't going to miss this one no matter what, Derek said. I showed up at the venue with a wrapped present and my heart pounding in my chest. When I tried to walk in, a security guard stopped me at the door. Derek had actually hired security to keep me out. I stood there arguing with this man in a uniform while I could hear music and laughter from inside. Then Lily came outside. My beautiful girl with tears in her eyes looked at me and said, "Mom, please just go. You're embarrassing me." Those words broke something inside me that I'm not sure ever fully healed. My own daughter was ashamed of me. I looked past her and saw Noah watching from a window. I waved at him and he turned away. I left the present with the security guard and walked back to my car. I sat in that parking lot crying so hard I couldn't see. I took photos of all the cars in the parking lot, documented everything for my lawyer, but it didn't matter. All those concerned neighbors who'd once been my friends were inside celebrating with Derek and Patricia. The following week I had parent-teacher conferences scheduled. Both of Lily's teachers and Noah's teacher mentioned that the kids had been talking about mom's problems. Lily had written an essay for English class titled, "The Person Who Disappointed Me Most," and it was about me. Noah had drawn a picture in art class of our family with me, crossed out in black marker. The school counselor pulled me aside and very gently suggested that I seek help for the children's sake. I tried to explain what was really happening, that Derek and Patricia were manipulating the kids, but as the words came out of my mouth, I realized how I sounded. I sounded exactly like a scorned, bitter ex-wife making excuses. The truth didn't matter because the lie was so much more believable. Then Derek filed for full custody. The motion included statements from the children themselves. Lily had written, "I don't feel safe at Mom's house. She cries all the time and says mean things about Dad and Aunt Patricia." Noah's statement was clearly dictated by an adult, but had his signature at the bottom. "I want to live with Dad and Aunt Patricia full-time. They make me happy." Reading those words felt like being stabbed. I called my lawyer in a panic. "They're manipulating my children!" "Can't the court see that?" My lawyer, this overworked public defender type who I could barely afford, sighed heavily. "I believe you, Claire. But the court sees two happy, stable children with their father and a distraught mother falling apart. We're fighting an uphill battle here." The custody hearing was devastating. The judge interviewed Lily and Noah in his chambers without me present. When they came out, both children had expressed a preference to live primarily with their father. The judge issued a temporary order, giving Derek primary custody with me getting supervised visitation only. 1 hour per week in a sterile room with a social worker present. That's what my relationship with my children had been reduced to. Those supervised visits were torture. The room was beige and depressing with industrial carpet and fluorescent lights. The social worker sat in the corner, taking notes on everything I said and did. Lily would barely speak to me. She'd answer questions with 1 or 2 words and spend most of the hour on her phone. Noah was a little warmer but still distant. Like he was visiting a stranger he felt obligated to be polite to. Patricia had bought them new phones, expensive ones, and she texted them constantly during my visits. I could see the notifications popping up on their screens. One day, Noah asked me a question that made my blood run cold. "Mom, why did you cheat on Dad?" I was so shocked I couldn't speak for a moment. "What? Sweetheart, I never cheated on your dad. Who told you that?" Noah looked confused. "Aunt Patricia said you had a boyfriend and that's why Dad left." They had reversed the entire story. In my children's minds, I was the cheater and Derek was the victim. I tried to correct it gently. "That's not true, Noah. Aunt Patricia and your dad were the ones who—" The social worker interrupted me. "This is an appropriate conversation for visitation." I couldn't defend myself without being accused of bad-mouthing their father. I was trapped in an impossible situation where the truth was considered inappropriate and the lies were accepted as fact. Then my own mother betrayed me. Diane called me one evening, and her voice was cold. "Patricia tells me you're spreading lies about her. Why are you being so vindictive, Claire?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Mom, she slept with my husband. She's stealing my children. How can you take her side?" Diane's response was something you'll never forget. "Marriages end, Claire. People move on. You need to let go of this anger. It's not healthy." My mother had always favored Patricia. Patricia was the baby, the free spirit, the one who needed protection. I was the responsible one who could handle things on my own. I was taken for granted my entire childhood, and apparently that was continuing into my adulthood. Then Diane told me she was planning to attend Derek and Patricia's wedding. Yes, they were getting married. 3 months from now they'd be husband and wife, and my mother was going to be there celebrating. I hung up on her. I was completely cut off from my blood family except for Ruth. Ruth was the only one who believed me, who saw the truth, who hadn't abandoned me. I clung to that knowledge like a lifeline. At least one person in my family knew I wasn't crazy. At least one person was on my side. I just didn't know yet how much she was really doing behind the scenes. 1 year into the divorce battle and my life was unrecognizable. I'd lost the house in the divorce settlement. Derek got to keep it and Patricia moved in like she'd been planning to all along. They were living in my home, sleeping in my bed, raising my children in the rooms I decorated. I moved to a small apartment in a cheaper town 30 miles away. It was all I could afford. The distance meant I was even further from my kids' schools and activities. I'd lost most of my design clients and ended up working retail at a department store just to pay bills. The legal fees had crushed me financially. I was in debt to my inadequate lawyer and drowning in credit card payments. Every day felt like another small death. Then Derek filed for a restraining order against me. He claimed I was harassing him and Patricia. His evidence was that I'd driven past the house several times. The truth was I was trying to catch a glimpse of my children playing in the yard. I missed them so desperately that even seeing them from a distance felt necessary for my survival. But Patricia called the police every single time she saw my car. She documented it all as stalking and harassment. The restraining order was granted. I couldn't come within 500 feet of the house or of Derek and Patricia. That restraining order effectively erased me from my children's lives. I couldn't attend school events if Derek was going to be there, and he never missed anything. I couldn't go to their sports games. I couldn't drop by their schools to have lunch with them. I was a ghost in their lives, present only for 1 supervised hour per week. My mental health was deteriorating badly. I stopped eating regularly and lost 20 pounds. I couldn't sleep more than a few hours at a time. When I did sleep, I had nightmares about losing my children forever. I started having dark thoughts. Really dark thoughts. One night I stood on my apartment balcony looking down at the parking lot 4 floors below. I thought about how easy it would be to just step over the railing, how all this pain could stop in an instant, how I wouldn't have to feel this crushing weight anymore. I was standing there crying, one foot on the lower rail, when my phone rang. It was Ruth. Her voice came through clear and commanding. "Come see me tomorrow morning. 9 a.m. sharp. Don't be late." There was something in her tone that cut through my fog. I stepped back from the railing. "Okay," I whispered. "I'll be there." That phone call saved my life that night. I truly believe that. The next morning I drove to Ruth's estate. The big Victorian house had always felt like a sanctuary to me. Ruth was waiting in her sitting room. She looked frail. More frail than I'd seen her before, but her eyes were fierce and alive. "Sit down," she commanded. "I'm going to tell you some things, and I need you to listen carefully." Then Ruth revealed something I never expected. She'd been investigating. For the past 6 months, She'd hired a private investigator named Frank Murphy, a former police detective with an impressive reputation. Frank had been gathering evidence this entire time. Ruth had binders full of documents spread out on the coffee table. Photos of Derek with other women during our marriage. Before Patricia. Financial records showing Derek hiding assets through shell companies. Evidence of tax fraud. Then Ruth told me about Patricia's history that I never knew. This wasn't her first affair with a married man. 5 years ago in another state, Patricia had an affair with her married boss. She'd left that situation with settlement money. It was essentially blackmail. Patricia had a pattern of predatory behavior with married men. She was a con artist and had been too blind to see it. "Why didn't you tell me all this before?" I asked Ruth. Her answer was calculated and cold in a way I'd never heard from her. "I needed to see how far they'd go. I needed ironclad evidence that would hold up in any court, and I needed you to fight back instead of giving up." Then Ruth told me something that made me start crying all over again. She'd been diagnosed with terminal cancer, 6 months to live, maybe less. She was 87 years old and she'd lived a full life, but she wasn't going to die without fixing this. "I'm going to save you, Claire," she said firmly. "I'm going to save you and those children." Ruth had already hired a top divorce and family law attorney named Victoria Winters. Victoria was known for being ruthless, expensive, and she never lost. Ruth was paying all the legal fees from her considerable estate. Victoria took one look at my case with fresh eyes and immediately started filing motions. Motion to revisit custody based on new evidence. Motion to investigate Derek's finances. Motion to depose Patricia about her past. Suddenly, Derek and Patricia were on the defensive for the first time. Victoria's strategy was slow and methodical. She was building an unshakable case brick by brick. Ruth also revealed something else she'd done. She'd been recording conversations. Patricia had visited Ruth a few weeks earlier, trying to butter her up for inheritance purposes. Ruth had hidden recording devices in her sitting room. On that recording, Patricia admitted the affair had been going on for 4 months before I discovered them. "Derek said he was going to leave her anyway," Patricia said on the tape. "I just helped speed things along." The recording proved premeditation and planning. This wasn't a one-time mistake like they'd claimed in court. It was a calculated affair designed to destroy my marriage. Ruth looked at me with such fierce love. "I'm leaving you everything, Claire. The house, the money, the investments. Patricia gets nothing. But more importantly, I'm going to make sure the truth comes out before I die. That's my final mission in this life." I held Ruth's hand and cried. For the first time in a year, I felt something other than despair. I felt hope. Small and fragile, but real. Ruth had given me the most precious gift. She'd given me a fighting chance. 15 months into the divorce, and 3 months before the final hearing, Victoria Winters was filing motions like a machine gun. Every week, Derek's lawyer, Mitchell Harrison, received another filing, another demand for documents, another deposition notice. The discovery phase required Derek to produce financial documents going back 7 years. Derek scrambled to hide his paper trail, but forensic accountants are thorough. Meanwhile, Frank Murphy continued his surveillance. He caught Derek meeting with another woman named Jennifer Cole at a hotel 30 miles outside of town. Derek had been cheating on Patricia too. Frank had photos, videos, everything time-stamped and documented. Derek was running the same playbook on Patricia that had run on me. Victoria's strategy was brilliant. She sent an anonymous tip to Patricia with copies of the photos. An envelope arrived at the house with pictures of Derek and Jennifer in compromising positions. Patricia confronted Derek in the driveway. Neighbors witnessed a huge screaming match. Patricia actually threw some of Derek's belongings onto the lawn. But Derek was smooth. Head had years of practice lying. He convinced Patricia the photos were old, from before they were together. Patricia chose to believe him because Shed invested too much to walk away now. Shed burned every bridge to be with this man. Admitting Shed been played would mean admitting Shed destroyed her family for nothing. The custody evaluation was finally happening with Dr. Helen Rodriguez, an experienced psychologist appointed by the court. Dr. Rodriguez interviewed everyone. She spent hours with me, with Derek, with Patricia, with the children. She visited both homes. My small apartment was clean and Id prepared rooms for Lily and Noah, even though they never stayed over. Id bought their favorite books and toys, kept their spaces ready and waiting. Dr. Rodriguez visited Derek's house next, my former house. It was impressive on the surface, but Dr. Rodriguez was trained to see beneath surfaces. She observed Patricia hovering over the children constantly. She noticed how the kids seemed to pause before answering questions, like they were remembering scripts. In a separate session with just Lily and Noah, away from Patricia's influence, cracks started appearing in their story. Lily admitted that Aunt Patricia told them what to say about Mom. Noah said he missed me, but he wasn't supposed to say that. Dr. Rodriguez documented everything carefully. Then something unexpected happened. Derek's business partner Raymond approached Victoria Winters directly. Raymond had carried guilt for months about his testimony against me. But more than that, Raymond feared going down with Derek when the truth about Derek's financial crimes came out. Raymond had evidence of years of embezzlement from their company. False invoices, diverted funds, money laundering. Raymond was willing to testify in exchange for immunity from prosecution. Victoria filed an emergency motion based on Raymond's evidence. Derek's criminal fraud was now part of the divorce case. The court ordered a forensic accountant to examine everything. Derek's hidden assets started being uncovered one by one. Offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. Properties registered under shell company names. The marital assets were 3 times larger than Derek had claimed. I was entitled to half of everything, and Derek had been hiding millions. Derek's lawyer advised him to settle immediately, cut losses, make a deal, avoid criminal prosecution. But Derek's arrogance was his fatal flaw. He refused. "I'm not giving her anything," he told Mitchell Harrison loud enough for people in the courthouse hallway to hear. Derek couldn't accept that he was losing control. That arrogance would destroy him. Meanwhile, Derek and Patricia made one last desperate move. They filed an emergency motion, claiming Id violated the restraining order by sending threatening messages. They submitted text messages as evidence showing me threatening Patricia and making violent statements. But Victoria's technology expert examined the metadata on those messages. They'd been fabricated. The messages originated from Patricia's own computer. Shed created fake texts and tried to submit them as evidence to the court. The judge was furious when Victoria presented proof of the fabricated evidence. Attempting to defraud the court is one of the worst things you can do in family law. The judge issued sanctions against Derek and his lawyer. Mitchell Harrison looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Patricia was called for her deposition, and Victoria tore her apart. Patricia had been confident going in, probably thinking she could charm her way through like she always did. But Victoria was relentless. Every lie Patricia had told was laid out in front of her with evidence proving it was false. Patricia contradicted herself again and again. She admitted she'd been living with Derek for 3 months before I discovered them, not that it just happened like they'd claimed. She admitted she helped Derek hide assets by putting property in her name. She admitted she coached Lily and Noah on what to say about me. Every admission was recorded by the court reporter and became part of the official record. Patricia walked out of that deposition in tears, her mascara running down her face. Derek was waiting in the parking lot, and witnesses heard them screaming at each other. Derek blamed Patricia for ruining his case with her stupidity. Patricia screamed back that none of this was her fault. Their relationship was crumbling under the pressure of their own lies catching up to them. I was changing too during this time. Ruth had hired a therapist for me named Dr. Sarah Bennett. I started processing the trauma properly instead of just surviving it. I was building real strength, not just endurance. I made a friend at my retail job named Morgan. She was a single mother who'd been through her own ugly divorce. Morgan understood what I was going through in a way most people couldn't. She invited me to a support group for divorced women. Sitting in that circle, listening to other women's stories, I realized I wasn't alone. I wasn't crazy. What had happened to me was real and recognizable, and I was going to survive it. Morgan became a true friend, the kind forged in fire. Meanwhile, Ruth's health was declining rapidly. The cancer was aggressive. She moved into hospice care at her estate. I visited every single day. I'd hold her hand and tell her about Victoria's latest victories. Ruth would smile and say, "I'm going to hold on until I see you win. That's my last mission on this earth." Ruth had finalized her will. Everything to me. The estate worth approximately $4 million. The Victorian house, investment properties, stocks, and bonds. Patricia would receive nothing. Ruth made sure Patricia knew it too. She called Patricia for one final visit. I wasn't there, but Ruth told me about it later. Shed looked Patricia in the eye and said, "You betrayed your sister. You destroyed your family. You get nothing from me. Live with your choices." Patricia's reaction was apparently explosive, screaming and crying, but Ruth just had her nurse escort Patricia out. The consequences were finally catching up. The final divorce and custody trial was scheduled for 3 days. The courtroom was packed. In a small town, this kind of drama draws crowds. I wore a simple navy dress and kept my hair pulled back. Victoria had coached me to look calm and credible. Derek wore an expensive suit, trying to look successful and stable. Patricia sat behind him in the gallery trying to look supportive. Day 1 focused on the financial evidence. The forensic accountant testified for 2 hours. Derek had hidden approximately $1 million in marital assets through shell companies and offshore accounts. Had committed tax fraud, business fraud, and perjury in his initial financial disclosures. The accountant showed chart after chart demonstrating how Derek had systematically moved money to hide it from me. Derek claimed Head experienced business losses while secretly transferring funds to accounts in the Cayman Islands. Raymond testified next. He looked nervous but determined. He explained Derek's criminal behavior in their partnership, the pattern of lies and theft that had gone on for years. On cross-examination, Derek's lawyer tried to attack Raymond's credibility, but the documentary evidence was overwhelming. The judge's face grew darker as the day went on. You could see her opinion of Derek shifting with each piece of evidence. Day 2 was about custody, and it was even more damning. Dr. Rodriguez presented her evaluation report. Shed found clear and convincing evidence of parental alienation. Patricia's involvement in parenting decisions was inappropriate and harmful to the children. Lily and Noah were showing classic signs of manipulation and coaching. Dr. Rodriguez recommended primary custody be returned to me immediately with intensive therapy for the children to undo the psychological damage. She recommended Patricia have no contact with the children for a minimum of 2 years. Then Frank Murphy took the stand. The private investigator presented his timeline of evidence. The affair had begun at least 4 months before I discovered it. Derek and Patricia had coordinated their stories. They'd systematically worked to isolate me from friends, family, and my children. There was clear conspiracy with intent to cause harm. Then Victoria played the video evidence. Patricia had been caught on a hidden camera coaching the children. "Remember, tell the judge Mom scares you. Say you don't feel safe with her." The video showed Patricia rehearsing statements with Lily and Noah in my former living room. The courtroom went silent except for gasps. I watched the jury of public opinion shift in real time. People who'd believed Patricia's performance now saw the truth. Patricia's face went white as the video played. Derek's lawyer objected loudly, but the judge overruled him. The evidence was properly obtained and highly relevant. The children's teachers testified about the dramatic change in Lily and Noah's behavior. It had coincided exactly with Patricia moving into Derek's apartment. The school counselor testified about signs of psychological manipulation Shed observed. Then it was my turn to testify. Victoria had prepared me extensively. I told my story calmly and factually. I described the devastation of discovering the affair. My attempts to maintain a relationship with my children despite every obstacle. My love for Lily and Noah that never wavered no matter how much they'd been turned against me. I didn't express anger or bitterness. I just told the truth as plainly as I could. By the time I finished, the court reporter was wiping tears from her eyes. Even the bailiff looked moved. Derek's testimony was a disaster. He was arrogant and defensive. Victoria destroyed him on cross-examination. She caught him in lie after lie. His charm that had worked on so many people had no effect on Victoria or the judge. His attempts to justify his behavior just made him look worse. Every answer dug his hole deeper. Patricia's testimony was even worse. Victoria was methodical and ruthless. She brought up Patricia's history of affairs with married men. She made Patricia admit her jealousy of my life. She always had everything. Patricia sobbed on the stand. The perfect husband, the perfect kids, the perfect house. I wanted what she had. Victoria made her admit Shed seduced Derek intentionally. He was unhappy. I gave him attention. I knew what I was doing. Patricia broke down completely, crying that she didn't mean for things to go this far, but it was too late for remorse. The damage was done and documented. Day 3 was final arguments and character witnesses. Victoria's closing argument was powerful and precise. She detailed the systematic destruction of my life that Derek and Patricia had orchestrated together. She emphasized their calculated cruelty and my resilience through it all. She highlighted my continued devotion to my children despite being pushed out of their lives. She asked the court to return primary custody to me where it belonged. She asked for the maximum financial award, including punitive damages for Derek's fraud. Derek's lawyer gave a weak closing argument trying to paint Derek as imperfect but not malicious. He couldn't overcome the mountain of evidence against his client. Character witnesses testified on my behalf. Morgan talked about my strength and character. Dr. Bennett discussed my progress in therapy and my fitness as a parent. Former design clients who'd learned the truth came forward to testify about my professionalism and integrity. Ruth was too ill to attend, but her written statement was read into the record. Her words were powerful. She described my devotion to her care and my character. She described Patricia's lifelong pattern of jealousy and manipulation. She described how Shed watched everything unfold and gathered evidence to ensure justice. The judge took the case under advisement and said Shed issue a written decision within 1 week. That week felt like the longest of my life. Derek and Patricia's relationship completely imploded during the wait. Derek blamed Patricia for everything going wrong. Patricia moved out and went to stay with a friend. Derek was served with a criminal investigation notice for tax fraud. His business was collapsing. His reputation was destroyed. Head become the pariah it'd been for the past year. Everything Head done to me was coming back to destroy him. 3 days after the trial ended, I was sitting at Ruth's bedside in hospice. She was slipping away. The cancer had ravaged her body, but her mind was still sharp in brief moments of lucidity. I held her hand gently, careful not to hurt her fragile skin. "Thank you," I whispered to her. "Thank you for saving me. Thank you for believing in me when no one else did." Ruth's eyes fluttered open, and she squeezed my hand with surprising strength. "You saved me too, sweetheart. You were the only one who truly loved me for who I was, not what I had." She took a labored breath. "The will. Everything is yours. But there's one more thing." Ruth's lawyer Philip Anderson arrived within the hour carrying documents. Ruth had created trust funds for Lily and Noah, $100,000 each. The money would be held for their education and could only be accessed through me as trustee. Derek couldn't touch a penny of it. Patricia was explicitly excluded from any benefit whatsoever. But there was more. Ruth had written letters to both Lily and Noah to be given to them when they turned 18. Letters explaining the truth of what happened, her observations of the family dynamics, and her deep love for them. Ruth's hope was that when they were adults, they'd understand and reconcile with me properly. Ruth passed away that evening with me holding her hand. Her death was peaceful, a gentle slipping away after a long and full life. My grief was profound. I'd lost my greatest ally, my truest family member, the woman who'd fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself. The funeral was held 3 days later. It was small and intimate per Ruth's wishes. I delivered the eulogy and talked about Ruth's fierce love and unshakable integrity. I talked about how she taught me that family is defined by loyalty and love, not just blood. Lily and Noah attended with Derek. I watched them from across the room. They looked uncomfortable and sad. They'd loved Ruth in their own way. Seeing my genuine grief seemed to affect them. It was the first crack in the wall Patricia had built between us. After the funeral, there was a will reading at Philip Anderson's office. I attended along with Patricia and our mother Diane who'd flown in from Florida. Patricia walked in looking nervous but also expectant. She'd always assumed she'd get something from Ruth's estate. Even after Ruth had told her otherwise, Patricia probably thought it was just angry talk. Philip read the will formally. Everything to Claire. The Victorian house estimated at $1.2 million. Investment properties, savings accounts, stock portfolios, the total estate after taxes was approximately $4 million. Patricia received $1. Not zero, but $1. That was intentional. In estate law, giving someone $1 prevents them from claiming they were accidentally forgotten. It proves they were deliberately excluded. Patricia's reaction was explosive. She jumped out of her chair, screaming at me. "You manipulated her! You poisoned her against me! You stole my inheritance!" Philip Anderson remained calm. "Miss Patricia, Ruth was evaluated by multiple doctors and found to be of completely sound mind when she made these decisions. She made her choices based on your documented behavior." Patricia turned her rage on me directly. "You've taken everything from me. Everything." I stood up and looked my sister in the eye. For the first time in almost 2 years, I felt powerful instead of victimized. "No, Patricia, you tried to take everything from me. My husband, my children, my home, my life. Ruth just made sure you didn't succeed. This is called consequences. This is what happens when you betray the people who love you." Patricia's face turned red, and she looked like she might physically attack me. Philip stepped between us. Patricia stormed out of the office with Diane hurrying after her, still choosing the wrong daughter even now. I sat back down feeling strangely calm. Justice wasn't just a concept anymore. It was real, and it was mine. The next day, the judge's verdict was released. Victoria called me in the morning. "Claire, sit down. I have news and you're going to want to be sitting for this." My hands were shaking as I sat on my apartment couch. Victoria's voice was triumphant. "We won. We won everything." The judge's written decision was 40 pages long and comprehensive. Custody decision. Primary physical custody returned to me effective immediately. Derek would have supervised visitation only until he completed parenting classes and therapy. Patricia was granted no visitation rights and no legal standing with the children. A restraining order was issued requiring Patricia to stay away from Lily and Noah for a minimum of 2 years. The financial decision was even better. I was awarded 60% of all marital assets due to Derek's fraud and misconduct. I got the family house back. Derek had to vacate within 30 days. I was awarded substantial monthly spousal support. Derek was ordered to pay all of my legal fees, which totaled over $200,000. The judge also referred Derek's fraud to the criminal prosecutor. There would be criminal charges coming. The judge's written opinion was scathing. She used phrases like malicious campaign of destruction and reprehensible conduct that shocks the conscience of the court. She detailed how Derek and Patricia had conspired to destroy me and manipulate my children. Every horrible thing they'd done was now part of public record with a judge's condemnation attached. I dropped to the floor and sobbed with relief. 2 years of pain and fighting had led to this moment. Justice had actually prevailed. That afternoon, I went to pick up Lily and Noah from Derek's house with a police escort and the court order in hand. Derek answered the door, looking defeated and broken. Patricia wasn't there. She'd already abandoned ship when things went bad. The kids came to the door with their backpacks looking confused and scared. "What's happening?" Lily asked. I knelt down to their level. "You're coming home with me, babies. To our real home. The house where you grew up." Lily looked resistant, still holding on to the programming she'd received, but Dad said. I kept my voice gentle. "I know what you've been told. I know you're confused and probably angry. But your mother and I love you more than anything in this world. I'm going to prove that to you every single day for the rest of our lives." Noah hesitated for just a moment, then threw his arms around me. "I missed you, Mommy." Those words were like water in a desert. Lily stood watching, tears streaming down her face, still torn and conflicted. But she got in the car. That was enough for now. We drove away from that house together, and I felt like I could finally breathe again after drowning for 2 years. This was the beginning of healing, the beginning of our real life together, the beginning of everything Ruth had fought to give us. 6 months after the verdict, life looked completely different. The kids and I were living in our family house again. I'd packed up everything Derek and Patricia had brought in and donated most of it to charity. I didn't want their presence lingering in our home. We redecorated together, Lily and Noah and I. We picked out new paint colors and furniture. We made it ours again. I hung Ruth's portrait in the living room in a place of honor. Every day the kids would see their great-grandmother's face and remember the woman who'd fought for our family. Lily and Noah were in intensive therapy with Dr. Bennett. The process of undoing parental alienation is slow and painful. Noah adjusted faster. He was younger and more naturally forgiving. He'd bounce into the kitchen in the mornings and hug me tight. He'd tell me about his dreams and his friends at school. The light came back into his eyes relatively quickly. Lily struggled more. She was older and had been more deeply programmed. She also carried guilt about the things she'd said and done to me. She'd been cruel in ways that she was now old enough to understand and regret. One evening, about 4 months after they'd moved back in, Lily asked if she could talk to me. We sat in her room, just the two of us. I'd learned to give her space and let her come to me when she was ready. "Mom, I read Aunt Patricia's deposition transcript, the one where she admitted she coached us." Tears were running down Lily's face. "I said terrible things to you. I believed such awful lies. How can you even stand to look at me?" I pulled my daughter into my arms and held her while she sobbed. "You were a child, Lily. They were adults who manipulated you. You're not responsible for what they did. You're my daughter and I love you." Nothing you said or did changed that even for a second. Lily cried harder. "I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry." We held each other and cried together, mourning the time we'd lost and beginning the real process of healing. From that night forward, Lily was different. She was softer with me, more open. She started seeking me out to talk about her day or ask advice. Our relationship was rebuilding brick by brick. Derek's supervised visits became increasingly rare and awkward. He was facing criminal charges for fraud and looking at potential prison time. His business had gone bankrupt. His reputation was completely destroyed. Head moved to a tiny apartment in a bad part of town. When the kids came back from visits with him, they seemed more sad for him than anything else. They could see how far Head fallen. Patricia had completely disappeared from our lives. Shed left town shortly after the verdict, apparently too ashamed to stay where everyone knew what Shed done. The last I heard, she was in Arizona working at a bar and living alone. Shed tried to reach out to Diane a few times, but even our mother eventually stopped taking her calls. Diane did reach out to me with what I suppose she thought was an apology. She called one evening and said, "I think I may have been too quick to judge the situation." That was as close to "I'm sorry" as I was going to get from her. I was polite but distant. Some bridges once burned can't be rebuilt. I wasn't interested in pretending everything was fine just because Shed finally realized Shed backed the wrong daughter. My life had transformed in ways I never could have imagined during those dark days. Ruth's inheritance had given me security and freedom I'd never had before. I quit the retail job and restarted my graphic design business from home. Working from home meant I could be there when the kids got home from school. I could attend every game and recital. I could be the present mother I'd always wanted to be. My former clients started coming back as word spread about what had really happened. The community's opinion had shifted entirely. People who'd shunned me now looked ashamed when they saw me at the grocery store. Some former friends tried to reconnect with apologies. I was selective about who I let back into my life. Morgan remained one of my closest friends. True friendship forged in fire lasts forever. I started a foundation in Ruth's name dedicated to helping women going through difficult divorces. We provided legal assistance, counseling services, and support groups. I wanted to turn my pain into something meaningful that could help others. Every woman who came through our doors reminded me of myself in those dark days. If I could help even one person avoid the depths of despair it experienced, Ruth's gift would multiply beyond measure. I wasn't dating yet. I was focused entirely on my children and rebuilding our family. But I was open to the possibility someday. I'd learned that betrayal doesn't mean you stop trusting everyone forever. It means you get better at recognizing who deserves your trust. The kids were thriving in ways that made my heart full. Their grades had improved dramatically. Lily made honor roll. Noah joined the school soccer team and scored 3 goals in his first game. They smiled freely now. They laughed at dinner. They fought with each other like normal siblings instead of the tense, coached versions of themselves they'd been. Family therapy was working. We were healing together. Our first Thanksgiving back together was special. I invited Morgan and her kids to join us. We had a full table of people who genuinely cared about each other. Before we ate, I asked everyone to share what they were thankful for. Noah said he was thankful for our house and his soccer team. Morgan's daughter was thankful for new friends at school. Lily spoke last. "I'm thankful for Mom, for never giving up on us, even when we gave up on her. And I'm thankful for Great-Grandma Ruth for making sure we got our family back." Then Lily pulled out a framed copy of one of Ruth's letters that I'd let her read early. Ruth had written about truth, loyalty, and the real meaning of family. Lily kept it on her nightstand as a reminder. We all raised our glasses in a toast to Ruth, the woman who'd saved us all. One quiet evening, a few weeks later, I found myself standing in the kitchen watching Lily and Noah doing homework at the table. They were bickering about whose turn it was to use the good eraser, completely normal sibling stuff. I felt this wave of gratitude wash over me. I'd lost everything, been stripped down to nothing, had my entire world destroyed, but I'd gotten it back. Not the same way it was before, because that life had been built on lies I hadn't seen. This life was built on truth and survival, and hard-won healing. It was stronger because of what we'd been through. Ruth's will hadn't just been about money. It had been about justice and validation and giving me the weapons I needed to fight back. One Saturday morning, I drove out to the cemetery where Ruth was buried. I brought fresh flowers like I did every week. I knelt by her headstone in the quiet morning light. I wish you could see them, Ruth. Lily and Noah are doing so well. We're happy. We're free. We're actually going to be okay. I traced my fingers over her name carved in granite. You did this. You saved us. You taught me that I was worth fighting for, that I deserved justice and love and respect. You taught me that staying down wasn't my only option. I felt a sense of peace sitting there that I hadn't felt in years. Ruth's greatest gift wasn't the money or the house, although those things changed our lives. Her greatest gift was teaching me my own worth. She showed me that betrayal doesn't define you, that you can lose everything and still rebuild, that justice sometimes takes time but it's worth the wait. I thought about Derek sometimes, about how his arrogance had destroyed him completely, had been sentenced to 3 years in prison for fraud, had voluntarily given up all parental rights because he was too ashamed to face his children from behind bars. The man who'd once seemed so powerful and untouchable was broken and alone. I didn't take pleasure in his downfall. But I didn't mourn it either. It was simply consequences catching up. I thought about Patricia too. My sister who'd thrown away our entire relationship for a man and a life that never really belonged to her. The last I'd heard, Shed married someone else, some man she barely knew. I wondered if Shed learned anything or if she was just running the same pattern again. Mostly I didn't think about her at all. Shed made herself irrelevant to my life. My mother Diane called occasionally from Florida. Our conversations were brief and surface level. I answered her questions about the kids politely, but I never shared anything deep. Trust once broken that badly doesn't fully repair. Shed made her choice when I needed her most. I could be civil, but I couldn't forget. The real family I'd built was with Morgan and our support group of women who'd survived their own wars. That was the family that mattered. Lily was applying to colleges now, looking at schools with strong programs in her areas of interest. Noah was talking about trying out for the travel soccer team. They had futures ahead of them filled with possibility instead of manipulation. They were free to become whoever they wanted to be. One day, Lily came to me with a question that showed how much she'd grown. "Mom, do you think you'll ever forgive Aunt Patricia?" I thought carefully about my answer. Forgiveness is complicated, sweetheart. I don't carry anger toward her anymore because anger was poisoning me. I've let that go for my own peace. But forgiving someone doesn't mean letting them back into your life or pretending what they did was okay. She made choices that hurt all of us terribly. I've moved on from her, and that's enough. Lily nodded thoughtfully. That makes sense. I don't think you'll ever want to see her again. Neither did I. Our house was full of love and laughter now. We had movie nights and game nights. We cooked dinner together. We took weekend trips. We built new traditions that were ours alone. The Victorian house Ruth had left me stood empty for now. I couldn't quite decide what to do with it. Part of me wanted to move us there, to live in that beautiful old house filled with Ruth's spirit. Part of me wanted to keep it as a memory, preserved exactly as Shed left it. There was no rush to decide. For now, it was enough to know it was ours. That Ruth's legacy was secure. That her love had created a future for us that Patricia's betrayal couldn't destroy. I'd learned so much through this nightmare. I'd learned that the people who should protect you sometimes want. That betrayal can come from the ones you trust most. That systems don't always work the way they should. That being right doesn't automatically mean winning. But I'd also learned that resilience is real. That true allies can appear when you need them most. That patience and strategy matter more than rage. That children are more resilient than we think. That justice, even when delayed, is worth fighting for. Most importantly, I'd learned that living well truly is the best revenge. So let me ask you something. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely? Have you ever had to rebuild your entire life from nothing? Drop a comment below and share your story. Hit that like button if you believe in justice and second chances. Subscribe to this channel because every week I share real stories about real people surviving impossible situations. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that they can survive their darkest moment. To everyone who's been told they're crazy for knowing the truth, to everyone who's fighting an uphill battle against lies, to everyone who's lost their children to manipulation, I want you to know something. You are not alone. You are not crazy. The truth matters even when no one believes it. Keep fighting, keep documenting, keep hoping. Because sometimes, when you least expect it, an ally appears. Sometimes, justice catches up. Sometimes you get your life back even better than before. Thank you for watching my story. Thank you for believing in me when I almost stopped believing in myself. And thank you to Ruth, wherever you are, for teaching me that family isn't always blood, and that love is proven through actions, not words. May you all find your own version of justice and peace. May your children know the truth. May you rebuild something beautiful from the ashes. And may you always remember that staying down is a choice, and getting back up is always possible. Take care of yourselves and each other.